I gave birth to a child after 18 years of waiting and treatment. When my husband saw him, he said, "Are you sure this one is mine?" The day my son was born should have been the happiest of my life. Instead, it was the day my entire world began to fall apart. When my husband finally showed up at the hospital, what he said left me questioning everything. I've been married to my husband, Ryan, for 19 years. For most of that time, we've battled infertility. I've shed more tears than I ever thought possible, tears of hope, disappointment, and despair. When we first started trying, Ryan seemed supportive enough, attending doctor's appointments and holding my hand as we navigated the maze of treatments. But as the years dragged on, something shifted. He started behaving differently. I brushed it off for the longest time, convincing myself it was just a strain of our situation. After all, infertility takes its toll on a marriage. But his late nights at work and secret calls became more frequent. I'd hear him murmur things like, "I'll call you later," before quickly hanging up when I walked in. It was unsettling, but I chose not to focus on it. I was so consumed by the desperate desire for a child that I couldn't allow myself to spiral into paranoia. By the time I turned 38, I had nearly given up hope. But something in me, call it stubbornness or sheer desperation, refused to let go completely. I decided to try one last time. Ryan seemed indifferent, mumbling something about whatever makes you happy. When I told him about my decision, that hurt more than I cared to admit. And then, against all odds, it happened. I got pregnant. "Ryan," I'd whispered, holding the positive pregnancy test in shaky hands. "We did it. I'm pregnant." "That's great. That's really great," he said, but his tone was off, forced. I ignored it, focusing on my own joy. 9 months later, I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. Ryan refused to be in the delivery room. "I'll just pass out," he'd said when I begged him to stay. "They'll end up taking care of me instead of you." So, I went through it alone. And when he finally walked into the hospital room 2 hours later, his first words shattered me. "Are you sure this one's mine?" he said, his voice cold and flat. I felt like I'd been slapped. "What? Ryan, how can you even ask me that? Of course, he's yours. We've been trying for this baby for years." His jaw tightened, and he reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out something I couldn't see. "I have proof," he said. My world tilted. What proof? What could he possibly mean? He started telling me this wild story about how his mother had proof. I'd been unfaithful photos of a man supposedly waiting for me outside our house, and how she claimed no baby had been delivered from the room I gave birth in, but that someone had brought in a different baby to make it look like mine. I stared at him, dumbfounded. "This is insane. It's all lies." "You really believe her?" "She wouldn't lie to me," he said, his tone cold. "She's my mother, and I'm your wife. The one who went through everything to have this baby. The one who almost died giving birth to him. And you're standing here accusing me of..." I couldn't even finish the sentence. He turned on his heel, his expression unreadable. "I'll be back when I'm ready to talk," he said, walking out the door and leaving me sitting there, trembling with rage and hurt. The moment he left, I grabbed my phone and called my best friend, Olivia. She picked up on the first ring. "Sophia? What's wrong?" I couldn't hold back the tears. "He thinks I cheated on him. He said his mom has proof." "Olivia, it's insane. I don't know what to do." "Okay, slow down," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Start from the beginning." By the time I finished explaining, Olivia's voice had taken on a hard edge. "Something's not right, Sophia. You need to watch him. He is not acting normal." "Watch him? How?" "I'll do it," she said without hesitation. "If he's up to something, I'll find out." Hours later, she called back after tracking him. "Sophia, he went to another woman's house. I saw him go and..." My heart stopped. "What?" "Listen to me," Olivia said urgently. "This doesn't add up. You need professional help. Hire someone who can dig into this." A few days later, I contacted Sarah, a private investigator Olivia had highly recommended. She listened intently as I recounted every detail. "This is messy," she said finally, her sharp eyes meeting mine. "But I'll get answers. Give me 2 days." 2 days, all I could do now was wait. When I brought Caleb home from the hospital, Ryan wasn't there. No text, no call, just a chilling, empty silence. The waiting was unbearable. I checked my phone every 5 minutes, hoping for a word from Sarah, the private investigator. When the doorbell rang early the next morning, I almost jumped out of my skin. Sarah's face was serious, her lips pressed into a thin line. "We need to talk." I led her into the kitchen, settling Caleb into his bassinet. Sarah's eyes softened when she glanced at him. She leaned forward, her voice calm but deliberate. "I spoke with Ryan's sister." "His sister?" My eyebrows knitted. "We don't talk." "She's well." "She's not an addict as you think," Sarah interrupted. "She's been sober for years, and she told me a lot of things that are going to change everything for you." "What kind of things?" I asked. "Ryan married you for your money," she said bluntly. "His entire family knew. They planned it from the beginning." "What?" My voice cracked, my grip tightening on the edge of the table. "For the past 18 years, he's been siphoning money from your inheritance. Not just for himself, but to support his other family. He has 3 children with another woman." "No, you're wrong," I shouted. "I'm not," Sarah said, sliding a folder toward me. "It's all here, bank records, medical bills, and photos. And there's more. It looks like Ryan might have been sabotaging your attempts to conceive." I froze, staring at her. "What do you mean?" "Some of the clinics you went to, there's evidence he tampered with things. He didn't want you to get pregnant, Sophia." My chest felt tight. I could barely breathe. Sarah's words hung in the air, suffocating me. I could barely think. I glanced at Caleb in his bassinet, his tiny hand curling and uncurling in sleep. The weight of 18 years crashed over me like a tidal wave. I wiped my face, my resolve hardening. I'm not going to let him get away with this. A few days later, Ryan walked into the house, his expression smug. But when I confronted him, his entire face froze. "I know everything, Ryan," he stammered, but no words came out. "Save it," I said coldly. "The divorce papers are on the kitchen table. Pick them up on your way out." And just like that, it was over. For the first time in years, I was free. And Caleb would never grow up doubting his worth. New story. My mom kicked me out while I was pregnant 14 years ago. Yesterday she showed up on my doorstep crying. Getting kicked out at 18 for being pregnant was devastating enough. But when my estranged mother showed up at my door after 14 years, desperate and in tears, I welcomed her. The problem is that I should have known how she would repay our hospitality. I remember that day with painful clarity. I was 18 when I told my mother I was pregnant. The words she used cut so deep that I would never forget them. My hands trembled as I stood in our elegant living room, clutching my stomach, while my mother's face flushed with fury. "A baby? At your age? With Adam?" She spat out my boyfriend's name like venom. Her manicured nails dug into the armrest of her favorite leather chair. "Do you have any idea what people will say? How your stepfather and I will be judged? Our daughter out of wedlock? A disgrace." I shifted on my feet, nausea rising. "Adam and I will figure it out," I said, my voice trembling. "We're in love. We'll get married when we can, and he's already looking for better work." "Married? Work?" She laughed bitterly, her eyes wild. "Adam works at his uncle's diner. The least you could have done was date someone with ambition. There were doctors' sons, lawyers' sons. Even Caleb Porter, his family owns half the town. Instead, you chose some cook's kid who can barely pay for gas." "Mom, please," my voice cracked. "No, Lena," she snapped, standing and pointing a shaking finger in my face. "You listen to me. You're throwing your future away for what? Some fantasy about love? I didn't sacrifice everything for you to end up as some single mother working minimum wage." Tears spilled down my cheeks. "Adam loves me. We love each other." Her laugh was cold. "Love." She paced, heels clicking sharply on the floor. "Love won't pay your bills or get you into college like Emily Harris. Love won't give you the life we worked so hard to give you. But fine. If you've made your choice," she stopped, glaring. "Then live with it somewhere else." My heart stopped. "What?" "You heard me. Pack your things and go. I won't have you ruining this family's reputation. I don't ever want to see you in this house again." Her words echoed in my head as I left that night, carrying only what fit in my old backpack. She didn't stop me. Didn't look back. That was 14 years ago. But Adam proved her wrong. We struggled at first, living in a small studio apartment while Adam worked 2 jobs and took night classes. His family, though not wealthy, welcomed me with open arms. Adam eventually started his own construction company, and after years of hard work, it became one of the most successful in our area. Now, we live in a beautiful two-story house with our kids, Sophie 13 and Liam 9. We're financially stable, happy, and deeply in love. Yet, I often wondered if I should reach out to my mother. Sophie and Liam deserved to know their grandmother, or so I thought. It was a crisp autumn afternoon, and the kids and I were in the backyard raking leaves. Sophie twirled in the falling leaves, her laughter ringing out, while Liam chased after Duke, our loyal German shepherd. "Mom, look!" Sophie called, holding up a bright red leaf. "That's beautiful, sweetie," I said, snapping a picture with my phone. Adam pulled into the driveway, returning from the hardware store with supplies for our barbecue that evening. "Dad!" Liam ran to greet him, Duke bounding alongside. "Hey, buddy!" Adam grinned, lifting Liam into the air. He gave me a wink, the same playful expression I fell for all those years ago. Before I could respond, Duke's ears perked up. He growled low, turning his head toward the road. A black SUV had pulled up, and a figure stepped out. My stomach dropped. "Lena!" I froze. That voice. I turned, and there my mother was. Her once polished appearance was gone. She wore wrinkled clothes, her graying hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked broken. "Are those my grandchildren?" Her voice cracked as she pointed at Sophie and Liam. Adam was at my side in an instant, his protective hand on my back. Duke stood between us and the fence, growling softly. Despite everything, I invited her inside. That night, after a tearful explanation, she told us how her husband had gambled away their savings and abandoned her. She'd been sleeping in her car, desperate and alone. Adam listened quietly before offering her the guest room and some money to get back on her feet. She cried, thanking us both profusely. But something felt off. Adam later admitted he'd left the safe slightly open to test her. Around a.m., Duke's furious barking woke me, heart pounding. I rushed downstairs to find the front door ajar. Outside, under the glare of our security lights, my mother stood with my old backpack stuffed full. She froze when she saw me. "Mom?" My voice cracked. Without a word, she bolted, disappearing into the night. Adam appeared behind me, pulling me into his arms as I sobbed. "I'm sorry, Lena. I had to know if we could trust her." I nodded, my heart shattering all over again. The next morning, as Sophie and Liam hugged me tight, I realized something important. I didn't need her love or approval. I had my family, and they were everything.